allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion. Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Council comments? Didn't get it. All right, manager updates. Matt, you get ready?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll be brief tonight. FEMA updates, just as a quick heads up for those keeping up with the work. Right now, as you see, the storm debris, the temporary storm debris site behind us is now free of debris. And so right now we're working with the county to officially close that site. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to work on making sure, again, per the contract, that it's returned back to like it was conditioned, including, making sure the maintenance road is in the field itself is ready for our use moving forward. So we want to thank the county for their hard work on that and for their work throughout this entire process. And so we'll be working to, like I said, to close that up shortly. The other elements with FEMA, right now, we had another site inspection for the North Loop area earlier this week with both FEMA and North Carolina Emergency Management folks coming in. My hope is that, again, this is one of those necessary steps working with the county and the state to make sure that we check all the boxes that are necessary and to make sure that we are eligible for work back there. My hope is within the next couple of weeks, we get a determination letter about how to move forward with that back there. Well, when I say we, that the county receives that county determination will assist us with making a determination on how fast we can move on those permanent repairs back there. So again, I just want to thank the county for all of their hard work and due diligence back there. The other piece to share with you all is that we are in the final stages of the town hall repainting and carpeting project. And so as of right now, and again, Nicole Sweat, Parks and Rec Director, is in the back. She can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But over the next couple of weeks, the goal is to finalize a contract, get that scheduled together. What that means is that ultimately there's going to be as little a disruption for the community when it comes to the work here within Town Hall. So again, there may be some disruption from time to time, again, based off of what that schedule looks like, but we have prioritized making sure that we can continue to do business as usual and making sure that we are open to meet the community's needs. And then we'll also be posting information out there via social media and our website about elements for us that they can expect if there are any potential concerns, and then the same thing with the library as well, because the library is going to be a part of that process as well. So I'll just ask if anybody has any questions or concerns, keep up with our social media pages and our website. We're going to continue to make sure everybody is well aware of that, and that we do apologize in advance if there are any inconveniences that come from that. But I will say for myself, I'm excited about seeing a new coat of paint and a new color of floor coming into the building. So, and I want to thank council for your approval of that through the budgetary process this year.
Big time.
That concludes my report.
Okay, approval of the consent agenda by motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Sandra. Second.
Second.
Okay, Brian, second. Any discussion on this consent agenda? Hearing any? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, the proclamation. Get our best reader in the house a hold of this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So yes, before you is a proclamation concerning Constitution Week 2025, and I will read it as it's stated. Whereas September 17, 2025 marks the 238th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17 through September 23 as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, the mayor, Shannon Gantz, mayor of the town of Mills River, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim September 17th through September 23rd, 2025 to be Constitution Week in Mills River, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. Witness my hand and seal, 4th day of September, 2025.
Thank you, Matt. Do we need a motion to approve this proclamation? Yeah, okay, thank you. Didn't someone send this to us, asking us to present this tonight or this week? As close as we could get to it.
Yes,
Make sure they know that we got it done, okay? Thank you. On to our regular agenda, presentation from emergency management.
Management partners that come and join me up here. That they could pull up a chair. I apologize. Are you sure? Yeah. Stay in the middle, and my voice carries, fortunately or unfortunately. So, Mayor and Council, I want to just take a few minutes here today to come and present an update on emergency communication and strategy. And I wanted to make sure that our partners in public safety, both the Henderson County Sheriff's Office as well as at the Mills River Fire and Rescue, are here as well to also inform you all and inform the community of the continued work and dedication that we have to ensure that we are continuing to be in a better place today than we were 1 year ago, especially as we come up on the 1-year anniversary of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. And so I really want to thank these gentlemen behind me, and I want to thank Stephanie Cantwell behind me as well for their work and dedication to the cause of making sure that public safety continues to be the #1 priority for all Mills River residents. And so, like I said, feel free to ask us questions as we go through it, but I just thought it'd be helpful to go through a little bit of the work we've done to date. If Kevin, if I may, if you may, can you work through that? All right, I'm just gonna work through Kevin back here. Before we start, any statements that you gentlemen would like to make? So, as we mentioned, in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, we saw some of the greatest feats of heroism during that time, and we also had the opportunity to recognize potential challenges that we had, specifically around emergency communication. As I mentioned, it also highlighted an opportunity really for us to be able to say, okay, where are we at currently, but also where can we continue to improve to better coordinate our efforts in future emergencies. Brief little timeline. Again, this is not everything, but I just think it's helpful to know how quickly we came together to talk through this. So in November 2026, members of Henderson County Sheriff's Office, Mills River Fire and Rescue, and town staff came together and did an after-action review. We wanted to make sure that the information was still very much front of mind about what worked and what didn't work, what opportunities there were, and what gaps we needed to focus on moving into future years. In December 2026, we took that information from the after-action review and we started with a draft review of an emergency operations plan. And really what this is, again, bare bones beginning conversation. I do not want to oversell where we're at with this, but at the beginning, having a conversation that said, in the case of an emergency, who does what when? Where do we set up? Where do we operate out of? Who's going to be in charge? So that's really what we started having those conversations for. And I really want to thank our partners for their openness for that conversation. And then from February to June, we really had a lot of conversations around the budgetary discussions, right? Where can we as the town, where can our partners work in coordination to say, hey, if we're looking at purchasing an item or items, we want to make sure that they work in tandem with these other items that may need to be happening across other across other organizations. And so those conversations, as you all know, through the budgetary process, became quite fruitful with some of the items that we've purchased so far and some other things that we're going to continue to work through. So we're going to go through a little bit of each organization individually, and we'll talk through what we as a group have talked about for potential next steps. So emergency communication tools first, we're well aware emergency communication was a major issue during the storm and the immediate aftermath. So we received 6 radios as donations for emergency use at the town hall complex. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. And thanks to the, and I want to say thanks so much to Mills River Fire and Rescue and to your board as well, that we will also be receiving 2 emergency radios with a range that extends across Henderson County. So again, now we have an opportunity from a communication perspective to say what's going on here at the town, but then and also can work in shorter distances, and then also having that connection across Henderson County as well. So in case we have to be mobile for whatever reason, we can continue to communicate with each other. And if I say something that you want to either go say more on or say, Matt, you went the wrong direction, by all means, correct me. You may also see in the back on Town Hall, we have installed a Starlink system. So it is mounted at Town Hall, and it's an internet backup currently. So we're still in the final stages of fully implementing that. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on that. I want to thank Nicole for that, because that was in my eyesight and was bothering me a little bit.
Who's OCD in here?
Yeah, right. And then exactly. Yeah, I believe you all also noticed it. So thank you. And then, so as we work through that as well, again, if we lose internet here, we're going to have that as a backup, especially in emergency situations. And then, council, as you all received an update at the last council meeting, implementing the rave alert system in the coming weeks for resident communication. And I've been talking in the very preliminary discussions, and I'm going to have many more discussions with Chief Burnett here on how we can also coordinate using that system where appropriate for our community. And then we also are continuing to look at exploring other mobile communication tools, such as satellite phones and mobile internet options, again, depending on what the need is. And we're going to talk about how we're going to determine what that need is in a future slide. All right, well, there we go. Chief Burnett.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, I'm Scott Burnett, interim fire chief, Mills River Fire Department. Some exciting news from the fire department. So since Helene, the things that we have enhanced to help Mills River the next time that something that bad occurs, and even in our daily operations. So the state of North Carolina offered grants to the counties that were affected by Helene, to the fire departments that were affected. And we applied for one of those grants and were awarded a $50,000 grant. And so we were very intentional about what we wanted to purchase. What was eligible are things that would help a community prepare for another type of Helene. And so we wanted to make sure that not only did we increase our capabilities for Mills River for hopefully an event that only happens every few hundred years, but also on a daily. So we didn't want to buy equipment that we would only pull out on a Helene size incident. And so what we are looking at is what can we do to get to people in Mills River when the roads won't let us? And that was from our after action review. One thing that we really identified, it was obvious, intuitive, that we needed to find better ways to get to people who needed help when the roads weren't there. And so a drone program, we currently do not have a drone, and we have purchased one now thanks to the funds from this grant. And we've got all of the things that go to that. We've got firefighters that are being trained as pilots. That's going to be a game changer for any time that we can't get to the people here in Mills River. That drone can do a lot of wonderful things. E-bikes, new motor for our rescue boat. Our rescue boat motor was underpowered during Helene, and then also ATVs. Those things obviously we'll use on a daily basis for all types of emergencies, wildfires, people lost in the forest, and things like that. And so we're grateful for that grant from the state of North Carolina that really increased our capabilities for another Helene type event. Also, a few months ago, I was before this board talking about our proposed budget for Mills River, and then this board was very supportive of our budget, which included increasing our staffing. And so we've doubled our staffing at Station 1 since Helene, and our paid staffing. And we added, as y'all remember, 5 new positions. We have 3 of those filled. They're trained. They're working today. We're in the process of adding the remaining 2 positions, and then we'll be fully staffed with our increased staff. Also, we've added 8 new volunteers since Helene. The majority of those live here in Mills River, and so that was really good that people in our community, after Helene, wanted to see how can we help our community, and they came to the fire department, and we were able to add 8 new volunteers. So we're as far as capability for our firefighters, we have a lot more firefighters available for another Helene type event. 2 other minor things, they're not minor, they're very important, but 2 other things that are enhancements are we have a social media presence now. We didn't have that before Helene. We got a Facebook account, and so that's been very helpful distributing information to Mills River. It's been helpful to amplify the town of Mills River's messages, and the town of Mills River has been great about amplifying our messages. And so in addition to that, we have doubled down on our community events and our community engagement. And so that's helping us get the word out about emergency preparedness and creating those connections to make sure that prior to another Hurricane Helene type event, we can do everything we can to prepare our communities.
Good evening, Darren Whitaker, Captain with the Harrison County Sheriff's Office. Did y'all get introduced to Stephanie?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll go ahead.
Perfect timing.
Yeah,
Stephanie Cantwell, I'm the new captain for this area.
she's over the SRO division, which has us touched in every part of Henderson County. How many schools? We got 23? Yeah, 23 schools. She is a wealth of knowledge and a hard worker. I've been working with her since, can't remember, it's been several years. But she's also been elected to the school board.
Congratulations.
So she got that. All right. So one thing that we weren't short of at the sheriff's office, or actually the whole county, was able bodies to do the job. Because I believe, I mean, we couldn't hardly kick people out of the sheriff's office to go home and be with their families. They want to stay there and work. But of course, with anything, the biggest problem we have was communication. That is the key. So the night or that morning, early morning, when dispatch went dark, as in we had no communications, that was probably the worst I've ever felt, helpless. I mean, you couldn't do nothing. You couldn't talk to nobody. So most of our improvements or whatever you want to call it, just things that I think that could help us later on, came from dispatch. So Stephanie Brackett, who is our director of communications, she gave me this bullet list here. So what we've done is they're installing the AT&T redundancy solution, which is actually, if the phone system goes down, AT&T is going to set this machine on top, where we can still make phone calls, or we can still, still use communications. We have an alternate abandoned route. Now, we had this agreement with Buncombe and Haywood County, as in if our 911 goes down, they can dispatch 911 calls out of Henderson County, will go to whatever county they say, then they can dispatch us. Buncombe County and Haywood being so close, if we're having some kind of emergency, well, they're probably going to be having the same thing. So we have contracted with Johnston County and Gaston County to do the same thing. So we've doubled our abandonment route. Ordered 11 Viper radios, which are the state radios. If you have any questions about that, I'm sure this gentleman here on the right can tell you everything you need to know about radios. But it's a statewide radio. A lot of DEA, ATF will use that for a lot of drug investigations and stuff like that. And it talks throughout the nation, but there are dead spots. And I can't remember where they are in Henderson County, but there's a few that it will not get out. We've also purchased 2 more Starlinks, which gives us a total of 3, 1 on the command bus, and then we'll have 2 that are wherever we need to go to set them up to get it going. Other than that, we're buying another, I think they've trying to get, we're gonna buy with drug funds, another UTV, so it'll give us 2. We're gonna get a 30-foot trailer so we can be able to haul them to locations where we need to go. Plus the trailer can haul supplies and other stuff like that. So
I thank you both for those updates. The other thing that I wanted to stress during this presentation is, as council is well aware, you all passed new goals as a part of the strategic plan, and one of those is to uphold excellence in community safety. And the way that we do that is through collaboration with our partners that are experts in public safety. And so I want to thank both of you all for being open and willing to look at coordinating emergency management exercises, essentially emergency exercises. So we were actually even in discussion. I want to thank Chief Burnett for leading this part right here around setting up with Henderson County Emergency Management themselves to run tabletop exercises where our staff from the town with Mills River Fire Rescue staff and Henderson County Sheriff's Office staff can get together and say, what are the gaps? Who's going to be in charge of what in case an emergency comes up with an emergency operations center, or we have to deploy an emergency operations plan. So again, from that perspective, we will be in a much more streamlined situation at that point, because we won't be duplicating efforts. We'll be able to know who's doing what, when, and how. And so the timeline for that right now is October 2025. We're still working through the details on it, but so there may be a little bit of movement there. But as I mentioned, the goal is really to identify those gaps and strategies for a joint organizational emergency operations center. I'd say if they probably exist in other locations, in my opinion. I have not found another one that's going down that's really focusing on true collaboration and coordination like we've been discussing. And again, I cannot stress how thankful I am to have these 2 gentlemen and then the entire organizations beside me and around us. The again, creation of an emergency operations plan is first and foremost. Who needs to be there? Who needs to be essential? We're going to be hearing a little bit more about essential personnel later on. This is helpful to identify who needs to be essential and what their roles are. Roles and responsibilities, as I mentioned before, and then a continuity of operations plan. Some people may say, you have an emergency operations plan, what's a continuity of operations plan? Continuity of operations plan, in my opinion, and these gentlemen can correct me, but it's essentially saying if we can't do the job for town services here, where do we go? How do we do it? So it may not be necessarily an emergency up to that declaration, but if we're unable to do our work here, our job is to continue to do the work of our community, and we have to have a clear understanding of what that is and where that is. And again, we'll be having to rely heavily on our partners to assist with that work. So that's what I have. Anything from you all? Make sure that's the last one. Okay. Very sensitive mouse. So that we just wanted to provide this quick update to you all. I wanted to and open the floor. If you all have any questions for us, we're happy to answer them now, or we can take them offline as well.
Questions?
I had a question. When all the cell phones went down, did y'all lose communication through that too?
yes.
Are they, I know you work with cell phones a lot, don't you, or do you? Cell towers?
We
Well-
have an AT&T will bring a cell tower wherever we want.
Okay, so if something like that comes up again, they'll be able to put something up to where people can still communicate.
Well,
Well,
I've got very long range.
no, you'd have to be
It'd
close to
something-
it.
That's why you put
Okay.
it next to the 911 center, but that's where most all communications are. If your landlines are gone,
Right.
use your cell phone. I don't think they sit them out in random areas, but usually
Okay.
call them insurance.
Well, I know they said before that the reason the cell towers went down were the generators all run out of gas at the same time.
Well, yeah, that's after they already got like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
A temporary.
One of the other elements of we didn't discuss here as well. But first and foremost, we've been looking at it from a town perspective as how do we make sure we continue to work during an emergency situation. One of the other elements that we're going to be looking at over time is also then how can we enhance those backup communications offerings if we can, that may be available for community members or what have you. We do know, for instance, during the resource hub that was located here, we had quite a few people who used our space for both charging, but then also we had one of the few places that had a little bit of signal from time to time. And then also with Wi-Fi and those capabilities as well. So we are exploring that. Again, we're trying to make sure first that we're prepared in case that happens, but then we are very much aware how important, how much of a lifeline it was here on our site for the community to come and try to communicate.
Anything else? I'd just like to thank all y'all for working together. That's why you don't see this in a lot, and you may not be able to find what you're doing is because it takes everybody working together to make this happen. To be honest, it takes a lot of your time, and a lot of other people we don't even see behind the scenes to make anything like this even reasonably possible. You can put it on paper, but if you can't have it where you can implement it, it's just stuff on paper. And I'm so proud of y'all for even jumping out there and trying to make this happen.
Absolutely.
When we get this going, we'll try to get us some volunteers trained up for our whatever we got to have and have them ready to go in a minute's call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So when you get set up there, we'll go into the consideration and possible adoption of the update for the park rules.
And Mayor and Council, if I may, I know that they just left, but one element I did also want to mention is that they have also agreed to quarterly public safety updates for council. So at the last meeting, in the second meeting of the month after the end of the quarter. So again, July through September is quarter one. The last meeting in October, we're going to have a public safety update and do that quarterly for you all and for the community as well to continue updates on just the operations that are going on from both perspectives. And I'm very excited. I'm thankful that they have agreed to that.
Oh.
So now before you is Nicole Sweat. Nicole, if you would like to jump off, I'll let you introduce the item.
Sure. Tonight we're just taking a look at our park rules. Since we have put our new expansion into our playground, people have found creative new ways to break park rules. So with some feedback from staff, some feedback from the public, and talks with our parks committee, we have come up with a couple of minor adjustments. Most of these rules are actually already within our park rules. It just doesn't overtly spell it out that it also applies to the playground. So we just wanted to, in our park rules, the dog park has a section that's these are the dog park rules and the tennis court and the baseball field. And so after talking with staff and Parks Committee, we decided it would probably be a good idea to have playground specific rules that we can post and just make it very easy for our staff to be able to reference. As I said, there is no major new changes. I will roll through them real quick and I'm happy to take questions. So this rule number 1 on the list, and this is page 14, part F, Evan, for your, it's the second to last page in the park rules to the bottom. So no bicycles, scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, or other recreational wheeled devices are permitted on the sidewalks, play surfaces, or equipment. We already have this park rule that says you can only ride bicycles on asphalt surfaces. That's what it says in our park rules. But again, this is just a way, we've had a lot of issues with this rule in particular. And so we do think it's important to spell it out that we don't want bicycles on the play surface. Kids ride them very fast and it's a danger to other children on those surfaces. It's not good for our surfaces. So that's something we want to do. Number 2, children must always be supervised by an adult. Again, that's a park rule anyway, that children have to be here and be supervised. Just seems pertinent to post that at the playground. Use the equipment at your own risk. Again, it falls under park rules that anything you do in the park is at your own risk. Playground equipment must be used only as designed. Climbing on top of structures, standing on swings, or other unsafe use is prohibited. So that's something that has not been spelled out before. We do have a general rule about unsafe behavior, and I can tell you children can climb anything. I have seen them on our shades all the way up that high. And so this is just another way for our staff to be able to say, hey, you're not using that properly. Because the argument's always, well, it's safe. I know what I'm doing. This gives that's not what it's designed for, and our staff can really keep a better eye on that. Equipment is intended for age appropriate use only. So all playground equipment by law and standards is designed for certain age groups that is posted. There's a sticker on every single play structure that you have to have. Kids constantly peel them off. We constantly put them back. And we just want to make sure that the kids are using it appropriately. It's better for our equipment. It's safer for the kids because that's who it is designed for. Proper footwear is required. We have seen this obviously with the proximity to the soccer fields and the baseball field. There's just a lot of opportunity for equipment to get tore up because of inappropriate footwear. So something we just want to keep an eye on. Number 7 is one that we have gotten a bit of feedback from the public. And again, we have had, even before we expanded our playground, have had damage or issues with people letting their dogs play on the playground. And it's really just not a safe situation for dogs. And so while we love dogs being, being a family friendly place, the playground is not the appropriate place to play with them. So that's something we are looking to add to the park rules. Again, no food, drinks, or glass containers are allowed on playground or equipment. That is just strictly for safety and sanitary reasons. No smoking, vaping, or alcohol. Again, that's everywhere in the park, but we just really want to make sure at the playground we have that posted. Rough play, pushing, shoving, or other unsafe prohibited behavior is prohibited. Again, trash and littering, that's a park-wide rule. Be respectful to others. And that just know that if our staff, you're a consistent violator, we are going to have to ask you to leave, and our staff have the authority to do that. So as I said, almost all of these rules are addressed somewhere in the rules. We just feel like it's really important to highlight them and for us to be able to post them. So enforcement is a little bit easier for our staff. So with that, I'll take any questions, concerns.
Question?
All makes sense.
Just because did the town attorney look these red things over just to give them her blessing?
These ones we did not, just because there wasn't anything.
A big change?
Everything's already in there, just
Okay,
Reiterated.
reiterated.
as long as you're good with it, yeah, okay. Any more questions?
Have you ever had repeat offenders? Have to throw them out numerous times?
Yes.
Is there a solution?
Mm,
Ban them for a certain period of time, or is that something be kind of hard to keep up with?
It is, it's different staff, different people every week, and usually after a few times they get the message that they realize staff is here, staff's watching.
Mm.
So I wouldn't say we have major issues, but there's always a few.
all right. What do you want to do?
So I'll make a motion to approve updating the park rules regarding the playground and adopt ordinance 2025-22 as presented.
I got a motion, I need a second. Well, James, second. Any more discussion on this? Hearing any? No. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
When we get caught up, we'll move on to consideration of appointment of our planning board.
Thank you. At your last meeting, it was brought to your attention that you have a vacancy on the planning board, and a couple of the applicants were able to come out and talk to you and introduce themselves. You have 6 applications on file. One of the applicants on file has said that she can't do it at this time, so she withdrew her application, but you have 5 individuals that have applied and they wish to be considered for the position. So you have options tonight. You can appoint from one of the applications on file for a 2-year term ending September the 4th, 2027, or we can continue to advertise the vacancy.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. Anybody has one or a consideration of moving it on up?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Brad Burton to the planning board.
Brad Burton.
I'll second that.
Jeff second it. Any discussion on it? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Good deal. All right. Okay. And I'm sure you'll be getting a hold of him. Thank you. Other business, any other business? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn this meeting and go into our business meeting.
So
Make-
moved.
I'll make a motion to
Right.
adjourn the current meeting and open up our business meeting.
Thank you. Second,
I'll say that.
Sandra second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, so when we're gonna, looks like the first thing we're gonna see is our tax collection. First presentation.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is my favorite time of year. It is property tax season, and I know everyone is just as excited as I. But in all honesty, like I told you before, the reason I took this job as tax collector wasn't because of the taxes, but it's because of the customer service and being able to help the community. And one of the nice things is that this is the time of year I get to see regular faces who I may not see that often. I get to see maybe my payment coupon people 4 times. So there is some sort of joy to it. And as we all know, Mills River likes to pay their taxes. They definitely come out in force.
And the wheel.
Thank you.
Very simple.
Oh, good. Oop, yep. All right. So this evening, we're going to talk about a little review of the tax calendar. What is real versus personal property? Who's the responsible taxpayer? How is the bill calculated? Do you have a late list penalty? What is it? What's the payment timeline? The really exciting part, the new bill, and wrap up in questions. All right, so we've looked at this earlier this year. Statutorily defined, there's 4 important dates. January 1st, which is when we know what is about to be taxed, be it real property or personal property. July 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. September 1st, which is when taxes are due. And January 6th, which is when taxes are delinquent. So you have over 4 months to make your payments. As a review, real property is dirt and the stuff built on dirt, while personal property is everything else. Personal property can get confusing though, because for your average individual, you mainly just own the things in your home and maybe a vehicle. So household goods like your television, your bed, your pots and pans, those are all exempt from taxing. But if you have a boat, a trailer, a unregistered vehicle, those all fall under personal property tax. Talking about your cars that have their tags on them, your license plates, those are taxed also as personal property, but through the tag and tax program with the DMV. So the money still goes to Mills River. Finally, you have your business personal property tax. So unlike household goods that don't have any taxable value in your home, at the business, your computers, your equipment, those things are all taxed and assessed by the assessor's office in Henderson County. So who's responsible for real property? Believe it or not, it's the owner on the date of delinquency. So January 6th. Personal property is the owner on the listing date, which is January 1st of the year. So January 1st of 2025, if you own that boat and then you sold it 5 days later, you're still responsible for the tax. One of my most frequent phone calls is, I sold my property in March. I sold my property in September. do I owe tax? The first thing I always tell them is contact your closing attorney. There's a lot of times that people make agreements of one person's responsible for X amount of tax. The, buyer is responsible for the last, but there is no law about that. So that's why it's based on the date of delinquency. We just try to get the bill to whoever we know owned it last to make it as helpful as possible. Again, how is the bill calculated? This is one of the most interesting parts and the least understood parts when you're looking at that giant number. So as you know, the tax rate is set every June at the end of the fiscal year as part of the budget. For the town of Mills River, it's the third year that we have kept the tax rate at 17 cents per $100. So 10 cents of that goes to the fire department, 7 cents goes to run the town. The value of the property is set by Henderson County Assessor's Office. They last reassessed value in 2023. They will do it again in 2027. But right now, the values are generally the same. For example, if a property is valued by the assessor's office at $300,000 and the tax rate is 17 cents per 100, how do you get your bill? You first divide the $300,000 by 100. So you got $3,000. That times 17 cents is $510. So that's what we mean by 17 cents per $100. So going to Mills River is 510, 300 of that going directly to the fire department for their portion of the tax, and 210 to run the town. As I mentioned earlier, personal property must be listed in January. This is an interesting thing. You have 1 month to let the county know, hey, I own this still. If you don't, or they figure out, hey, in June, they figure out that you own it, you get a 10% penalty put on there. Now, Henderson County is actually very considerate. They send out a letter for our January people if you own personal property to remind you, hey, fill out this form and send it to us. So do keep an eye out for that. Here at Town Hall, we also post a sign about it every year. If you walk out in the lobby now, you'll still see it from this past January, so people can keep it top of mind. The discovery, as I mentioned, is they figured out that you own something that they didn't realize before. So it gets that late list penalty because they had to do some extra work. So now you have your bill. What's the timeline? We send the bill in August and we send 4 payment coupons so people can have some leniency in making payments. It's due September 1st, but not late until January 6th. So you got, again, 4 months. So this year we have a new bill. This was sooner than I wanted to change it. The major printer for the state of North Carolina and local government, PMSI, abruptly went out of business one Friday in May. If you were getting a paper check for your income tax refund, it was delayed by months as they found a new printer. Utility billing was delayed by months. So you had a lot of local government and the state scrambling to find a new printing company and then getting everything set up, which I have learned is no small feat. I wanted to go over some of the changes. The front of the bill, this is the top portion. It has all the same information as before, your parcel ID, your bill number, what the assessed value is. Do you have an exemption or deferral? Did that reduce your tax value? So this is what your new tax value is. The physical location, description, or acreage. Again, breaking down 10 cents and the 7 cents to get the 17 cents, your amount, any penalty, and the total amount due. What's fun is, well, I think it's fun. We have a QR code on here now because some people prefer to pay online. They say, I've got my bill. I want to do it now. I don't want to go to that stinking little website where Mills River is misspelled and try to do it that way. They can scan their device on the QR code and pay immediately, or when they find the bill in 3 months. The bottom of the bill has the payment coupon, looks basically the same as before. If you have an address change, let us know and you can send that in. The back of the bill has a lot of the same information, but a redesign. Tells you your payment options of doing it by mail, in person, online, in a Dropbox, online banking. We always ask that you put your parcel information or a bill number on your checks to make sure we are attributing it to the same correct parcel, especially because we have people who have multiple parcels and send one check in. I want to make sure I put it on the right parcels. Again, a review of important bill information, due date, when would interest occur? What would it be? Advice for if you have a change in ownership. We do accept partial payments here. Again, it's just another way we're trying to make it easier on our community. What to do if there's you'd like a receipt, a return check, and a big one of when people have concerns about what the value is being assessed. We don't handle that here. Henderson County does. We get all of our information from the county. So we direct them to call the assessor's office. But any questions, feel free to call me or email me. Happy to help. And then this is the bottom. We've got the legalese of what happens if you don't pay. And that's not the fun part. But the part that I really like on this slide is we broke down earlier on a $300,000 house, we're getting $510 worth of tax money. 300 of that's going to the fire department and 210 for the town. But what does that really mean? 22.7% of that $210 is going to law enforcement for supplemental sheriff's coverage. 20.79% is going to administration, 14.8 to Mills River Parks and Recreation, capital outlay, planning and zoning, streets and streetlights. We have a full copy of the budget if people are interested, but these are the biggest dollar amounts. And sometimes it's helpful to sort of, when someone walks in and says, why am I paying taxes? Well, this is what you're getting out of it. Most of it really is for health and safety purposes. And then the final page is going to be 4 payment coupons, where people can cut the line and send them in. Again, if you're sending in for partial payment for multiple parcels, please write your parcel number on the check, because 4 partial payments, I don't know if that's for 1 parcel or 4 without information. I think this is really fun. There's another little QR code on this page, and I've seen that on other bills before and never knew what it was. It's the way they connect the first page and the second page in the printing process and sorting and getting it assembled. So nothing you need to worry about, just a fun fact. So that's a little bit of what the process is and getting everything in. I've already had a range of questions of connecting people to the assessor's office, moving, new ownership, questioning how we got to things. And honestly, getting the questions is the best part of the job because people want to understand and they want to do the right thing. I have people who do payments 12 months of the year. So I sent them out in August, letters saying, you've paid X amount, you only owe this amount, so hold off, you don't need to keep paying. Or, oh, hey, you may not make it all the way. So I'm trying to keep contact information and really keep in contact with our taxpayers for that. We have Brittany up front, and she's been taking tax payments. If you have any questions, she's great as well, but I'm always available. So any questions for me?
I appreciate all the hard work you've done and put into getting the new tax bill together.
A labor of love.
Anything from you two? Great presentation, by the way.
All right.
That's excellent.
Thank you. And I look forward to coming back later. I want to make sure our community closer to January is educated on exemptions and deferments and ways that they can save money if they qualify. And that's something that I hope we can get more residents involved with.
One thing you might want to do also is I know the county has what did you call it a minute ago? Like if you're disputing what your price
Your
back,
assessed value is.
they've got a window that you got to fit in when you can
Yes, and
So
that's something that I want to go over.
bring it with you when you come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody knows in case, because a lot of people, they'll go ahead and pay it and then they're going to argue it. And then by the time they've done missed that window to get the argument in, so they have to
Right.
go to the next year.
It's spring whenever that happens.
Yeah.
Springtime is whenever you can do all your affirmance, your exemptions, dispute your assessed value, those
Yeah.
sorts of pieces. At this point, we're a little bit locked in. I did talk to someone today who had sold some pieces and they had already taken it to the county. They're on the list for a hearing to have it removed. So, I told her, stay in contact with me. I appreciate you knowing, because I don't know until it's executed that something's going on. So by all means, I'm here for that, and we'll keep updating the website and trying to get more information out there so people are aware.
I hate to ask, but I need to know is our list of people that's behind growing, staying the same? Are we gaining ground on any of that as far as the ones that might be getting close to being sent to a lawyer?
for Enforced collection?
Yeah,
Okay. So on September 1st, one of the things is that if you have taxes that are overdue or outstanding for 10 years, then those drop off.
Right.
This year I only had to send one person to collections. And that was after working with a lot of things. Are there people who are going to be qualifying? I can think of 2 people that are very delinquent and historically delinquent. But I go through every method I can prior.
Okay.
But I have someone who's pulled up a mailbox, so they can't actually receive mail. So try to send them a certified letter. That's very difficult. But that's not something that I'm tracking at this point. Our collection rate at the end of June was 99.55%. It's gone up since then. If you look at the tax report, you can see we collected more for 2024. And this time of year, if someone pays, and today actually I wrote a letter. Someone paid their 2025 taxes yesterday. So today I wrote them a letter and said, hey, just so you know, you've got 2024 outstanding. If you pay by the end of this month, it won't accumulate more interest. Otherwise, this is going to keep building. So it is a service that we offer to try to get people off of those rolls too.
Okay.
But a lot of my time is spent with those pieces. And if anyone ever calls for their taxes, we make sure we notify them that they're outstanding. Because a lot of people, it just slips their mind, or they don't see it, or they see tax collector on a piece of mail and it's the exciting thing to open. So but we do what we can.
Okay. Right. Any more questions? Nope.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move right along to our presentation of on our personnel policy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you is a proposed personnel policy review and potential update again at a future council meeting. And today, I really wanted to spend some time talking through why this is before you today, what the work has been up to now, why we find it very important for this consideration to happen, and then what the potential next steps are. What my goal is for this conversation as well is if you have any questions from your review of this initial draft, please, please by all means, you can share it with me today, or we can talk about it one-on-one. But I want to make sure at the end of the day, the personnel policy is your document. It is adopted by council, and in many ways, it is the document that, as your chief administrative officer for the town of Mills River, you hold me accountable to. And so I wanted to make sure that, again, as we talk through this, that you feel comfortable with the document. And if you have any questions, that I help to try to allay any concerns. So as I mentioned, organizational personnel policies are really all of the policies and procedures at a general level when it comes to hiring, firing, benefits, how we do pay, how we have, how do we set holiday and leave schedules. It's really setting those employer expectations. What, as the town of Mills River, what do we expect from an employee when they come in? And then also at the same time, what the employee should expect from the employer. right? What happens if there are disagreements? What happens if there are grievances? What happens if there are questions around timekeeping, et cetera? This document helps as the guidepost in many ways for those questions, and helps to provide that clarity that's necessary for effectively running an organization. As you can see, it also talks about separation, what happens when somebody, chooses to leave the town of Mills River. We hope they don't, but if they do, what processes that we go through there, grievance, personal conduct, and again, records retention, again, vitally important, especially around records retention. A brief history, the personnel policy was originally adopted in 2007. Again, and so you can see that we've made minor approved updates. And when I say approved updates, again, approved by council in both 2012 and 2015. When I say that they are minor, from my review of them, they are quite minor in those updates. And so in many respects, a lot of the changes or recommended updates that you see before you are from about 17 years worth of updates that we think will help get the town's personnel policy up to 2025. You can see we've been doing ad hoc reviews from my conversation with staff since before my time in 2024. We really started kicking it off again during the transition period. And then when I came on board in August of 2024, I saw the need for an update to this policy. With talking with staff, they also shared their desires for an update on this. And so one of the methods that I found to be most helpful during any types of reviews are policy committees. Now, the policy committee that we formed here within the town is set up of people from employees from various levels. So, department heads, salaried exempt employees, salaried non-exempt employees, as well as making sure that there weren't a lot of any supervisory kind of conflicts out of within the meeting. What I wanted is, and this, my goal is that this policy committee will continue on through all of our policy reviews, because we want to have a diverse array of backgrounds and experiences to make sure that whatever we bring forward for council is at least reviewed and discussed with all that may be affected. Again, so in lieu of doing a full surveys of staff, or including everyone in for those types of deliberations, this, in my opinion, is the best method to ensure that those experiences are brought into the room for discussion. Now, in September 2024, as I mentioned, we did that initial review of personnel policy. And then in October, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, we also recognized that, hey, as a part of this review process, we also really need to look at building a robust emergency management response within that part. As we've talked about before, we'll talk about a little bit more later, the idea of essential personnel. What is an essential personnel? How are you going to define who is essential? How should essential personnel act in those situations, et cetera? Also, from a FEMA perspective, FEMA looks at our policies and they say, well, we're going to follow your policies and/or the most restrictive policy that you all have that govern you. And so things such as working overtime during the event, what my goal was around those sections was to really say, how are we going to pay employees during emergencies? How can we build expectations during the emergencies so that then through the, if hopefully it does not happen in our lifetime, but if something like that comes forward again, we have documentation for how people are paid, why they're paid specifically to emergencies, that we can then work through the reimbursement process. And then, as you all may remember, in February 2025, I brought the first 3 sections for your review. So we brought an updated introduction section, as well as Article 1, which is our general provision section, and then our recruitment and employment section. So today, what I've brought before you are those sections, as well as the other sections, all the way through the records and retention, for a conversation. And I'm going to highlight what I consider to be some major areas for discussion. However, if there's anything in your view that you would like to talk about as well, please by all means interrupt me. The one other caveat that I'm going to mention is that there are elements within here that also, if we've been doing an element by practice, that I wanted to also ensure that it was also now put into writing as policy, And I'm happy to go into detail about how we got to certain elements within the document itself. So introduction, no changes since the passage in February 2025. It still reads the same way that it was when council approved it. And the same thing with Article 1, general provisions. There are no changes that have been documented for those sections because council, we've been working under that new guidance. Article 2 is really focused on the pay policy. So what we've really focused on, as you can see up here, I'm going to read through these bullets, but again, we're happy to talk about anything that you would like. We've established the 40-hour work week. It states that you are working 40 hours. It states when the timesheet policy is from Sunday through Saturday, what those weeks look like. It's vitally important, again, for when tracking things like overtime, comp time, et cetera. It also establishes for council consideration a new compensatory time policy. I know for many of you, we've been talking about comp time and the accrual options over time individually. What this essentially says is for any of our salaried exempt employees, which again, there are 3 salaried exempt employees. Technically myself, I am the 4th, but I'm a contract employee. So the 3 that are affected as salaried exempt employees would be able to earn comp time for any week on hours that are shown after 45 hours. So again, as a reminder, as a salaried exempt employee, they are exempted from overtime of the overtime requirements by law. However, when looking at benchmarked communities, both around this area and around the state, I believe that this would be a potential major benefit for us as a smaller community to have in writing a potential compensatory time that's focused on salary exempt employees. Specifically, again, it still requires turning in a timesheet. We're still tracking time. But for those times that are over, let's say over and beyond for our salaried exempt employees, there's a dedicated bucket of time that they themselves say that they can use before using vacation or sick. There are times we know as a small organization, there are times that our employees, our salaried exempt employees, have to work long hours to get the job done. They are professional employees by design. That's why they are not, their job essentially is to get the job done. My belief is get the job done. And if there's a way that we can provide this extra benefit for the times that you go above and beyond because the job requires it, then that's something that we should look at. This is a rather novel approach, a rather generous approach, if I may say. When looking around the state, there are a few examples of this. Again, one in a smaller community, for instance, that I know of. UNC Asheville uses this, for example, as well for their salaried exempt employees. But when I'm thinking about trying to bring people in who want to join the organization, this is a major benefit. Now, it would not be paid out. It is not like comp time for salaried non-exempt employees. Salaried non-exempt, we are required to pay you out when you separate. But what this also does again is provide that for me as the town manager, it also allows me an opportunity for workforce capacity expectations. If I just to be honest with you, if I start to see employees hitting those 45 hours or more on a rather consistent basis, we're going to have a conversation about why that's happening. What's going on within the organization, within the job that's requiring that type of work? Do we need to look at workforce capacity? So for me, it's an indicator. But at the same time, it allows there to be that a piece. Now, it is up to 80 hours. It's capped at 80 hours, or 2 weeks. They cannot, if they earn more than that, it stops at 80 hours, but it can replenish throughout the year. The non-exempt, again, by law, we are required to, to pay them for overtime. All right, or we can provide them with comp time in lieu of overtime. So as you can see, it removes the term flex time. It talks about flex time as a flexible work schedule. It's really not that. It's really compensatory time. And so it remains at 1.5 hours per hour worked in excess of 40 hours in a work week. However, the policy before you also shows that cap is at 40 hours. Now, that does not mean that you can't get paid afterwards. What that means is that, as council may remember, we've now put overtime line items within our departmental budgets that means automatically individuals who hit 40 hours of their comp time, salary non-exempt, they will be paid overtime. And the reason for that is because of the liability that exists for carrying larger balances of compensatory time, right? We are required to pay them out. The higher that balance goes, the higher the liability that we have to pay that out later on. So that's why we say, hey, 40 hours is the highest. After that, where you're required to pay you, we're going to pay you. And that then it also provides department heads and supervisors that understanding to say, hey, wait a second, this person is getting close to their 40 hours. They're about to kick over into that. I have a line item budget. I need to stay within that budget. So I'm going to have to work through what the needs are for that overtime work before approval. Again, overtime has to be approved before taking. So those are the major elements there. Again, in my opinion, aligns with the budget that you all have passed starting July 1st, but also provides clear guidance for both salaried exempt and non-exempt employees. I'm going to pause there because there's a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions you have now, or I can keep going.
Okay.
This section also talks to emergency declaration, right? It outlines essential personnel. What is the expectation for essential personnel? It also talks specifically, and this is where I get to that point here, where it clearly defines that under an emergency declaration, which is a signed declaration, the pay rate is 1.5 hours for work in excess of 40 hours in a work week for both essential exempt and non-exempt employees. Okay. So again, as a reminder, through FEMA reimbursement, they talk about force account labor. They talk about what work and funds went to making sure you could respond to that emergency. This allows us, one, to say, you've shown up during the emergency, you're working above and beyond for your situation. We want to compensate that 1.5 times for both, and then work through the emergency declaration process and the reimbursement process to say it's stated there, and it would go as a part of force account labor for potential consideration for reimbursement. This mirrors many emergency declaration statements through our benchmarks. One other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sorry to pause here, but to go off on a tangent. But when I say we, what I really mean is, again, policy committee working and reviewing other benchmark communities, so therefore talking and collaborating with other organizations about what they're doing, and then also working through our HR consultant as well to make sure that's that we're in the same place or we're slightly better. My goal is always to be better than our peers. Again, I think that's a recruitment tool. But then also it's what you see before you has been before legal as well. And so through our legal counsel. Couple of other things real quick. We have created a more robust performance evaluation section with updated performance appraisal process. We've kicked that off formally July 1st. This section aligns with our plan for how performance appraisals are done within the town of Mills River and what the expectations are of the employees when it comes to setting goals and meeting those expectations. And last, certainly not least, our travel time policy. Our time travel policy would be very novel. Our travel time policy outlines the new expectations that are again aligned with what council you all have passed at the last council meeting when it came to the purchasing policy. So again, there's alignment there. It truly defines when someone gets paid, how they get paid, how they should be how they should be counting it, etc. So it clearly defines that now. I'm gonna pause. A lot in Article 2. Yes, yes. So yes, that it is tied to the merit. Yes.
Anything else? Nope.
Article 3, just only one update here since you all approved it in February. We received language and you all have passed in the consent agenda today regarding SBI background checks. This now has that required language that the state requires us to have. That has now been added into the draft for review. Other than that, everything else in recruitment and employment remains the same. Article 4, conditions of employment. Again, quite a few updates here. The Article 4 defines the work schedule in line with the Affordable Care Act. So essentially, it defines where the hours are that are necessary before you start triggering into other medical requirements. It also clearly defines meal and break periods. So by practice, now I'm going to speak only for myself from my research here, by practice, it has been understood that all staff have a 30-minute paid lunch because our hours are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., which is an 8-hour day, 5 days a week, it's 40 hours. And so, and I believe that this was started very early on in the early 2000s when the town was founded, that this was stated or implied. However, it was not written. Before you now is a written policy that states a 30-minute paid lunch. It also clearly defines 2 paid 15-minute breaks each workday. Now, for the 15-minute breaks, they cannot be joined together as the language states, but it basically says 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. And again, because they're paid just like with the lunch, if work requires you to work, then you're getting paid for that time. Now, again, that's one area that we had a lot of conversation on about whether or not to keep it at the 30-minute paid lunch or explore other options. Other options, in my opinion, would also require there to be changes within the timing of when town hall would be open, when they closed, etc. It's a bigger conversation, but it's a conversation that I think if we're going to explore it, should happen, during this personnel policy review. It also it also clarifies lactation break policy by law, which is a new section. It updates the relationships in the workplace, specifically including remedies for those supervisory direct report relationships. Again, we're in a smaller community. It's vitally important to ensure that, hey, if this starts to happen, if there is an alignment with a familial relationship with a direct report, how do we handle that? How do we work through a process that's legal for making sure that that is separated? All right. We've updated the harassment and reporting procedure based off of current law, and then we've also added and really made a robust town safety policy. This is going to be in line with the OSHA work as well that we're going to be working on this year that, again, we talked about during the budgeting process. Any questions on Article 4?
Do quickly go over like some pros and cons of a paid lunch versus non-paid lunch.
Yes.
What
Sure. It is. First of all, I'm not a lawyer. I want to be very clear about that. My understanding, and if I may, I'll just also mention whenever this comes back up for actual review in the regular meeting, I'll also have partners with me for that discussion who can clearly define those answers for you. But my understanding is that the 30-minute lunch under current policy essentially says, again, if you can step away from your desk to do work for 30, and eat for 30 minutes, then great, you get paid for that time. However, the con of that is if your work requires you to work during those 30 minutes, we are paying you. So therefore, working from your desk can potentially be a regular occurrence. And again, it's a question that we as a town have to think through about whether or not organizational culturally, that's one way or the other, like what's the important element there. The other part of it to consider, the pro of keeping it as is that we are well established at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Right? By shifting to either a 30-minute unpaid lunch or an hour unpaid lunch, it would require us to then explore, again, an 8:30 a.m. time or an 8 a.m. time start. I would say, again, that would just be a cultural shift. Again, the council would have to direct for us to consider. But that expectation would be that you would get away from, the pro of that would be, we're expecting you to get away from your desk. We're expecting you to use that time for yourself to not be working. And if you do work during that time, you're going to be counting that as work time, right? So the pro is that you're able to categorize all of that information, right? And be able to clearly say you work during lunch. We're going to, there's an extra hour there. my recommendation is if there is a shift from what this current practice has been, that we would have to explore potential flexible work schedule policies and other more internal policies to allow for that flexibility for that, just because we've had that 9 to 5 established, typically it would be, if somebody wants to work nine to 5 and work during lunch, that is it would be expressly stated. Department head would have to sign off on it that we have coverage, et cetera. There's another process that would have to happen, but it's something that could be explored if council would like to.
It's my understanding that back when the first council was developed, they seen right off the bat there was going to be an issue going 9 to 5 with only Sue being present as the tax collector and the clerk.
Mm.
Even if she had a doctor's appointment or whatever and had to leave, we didn't have a sub. We didn't have anybody to fill it. And when the door is locked at town hall and somebody comes to make a tax payment, it immediately becomes an issue because the council was getting called, hey, you can't even get in town hall. What's going on?
Mm.
Well, we was one step above Mayberry at that point in time. So, we said, well, Sue had to go to the doctor, or Sue run home to eat, or whatever, so, that's where we went 9 to 5. Try to eat sometime, try to get your breaks when you can.
Mhm.
But as long as there's business at the door, we got to take care of the business.
Understood.
And that was just verbal at that point in time, but that's how it got to be there. But to open at 8 and close at 5 or 6 or whatever would be crazy at this point, I think.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of optional lunch. That's, the 30-minute paid, I'm for, like, hey, you need to go take lunch and walk out and not be at work for a couple minutes. But it's hard to work through because there's so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get crucified if the door's locked from 12 to 1.
Well, so from my, well, and again, that right now this is what's currently there.
Right.
The one other thing that I wanted to mention is that this personnel policy, although there's been small updates, my goal is that this is going to be reviewed at least every 2 to 3 years for those potential changes. It has to be a living document to be able to update. So in case there are changes that council wishes to see in the future, that we can do so. I would say it right now, from a cultural perspective, my opinion and my goal is to make sure that everybody takes that 30-minute paid lunch and gets away from their desk as much as possible.
Right.
And that's something, again, I think any town manager who wants to build that, that culture in there is going to prioritize that. Like I said, as of right now, though, it clearly states that if we're paying you, eat when you can, essentially, if you can get away, great. If you can't, nature of the job.
Mm-hmm.
So
That-
in all reality, 30 minutes, you can't get the Big Macs out of the sandwich and get back.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Now, I would say that if there was a shift for, that's why, and again, and I don't want to speak for staff, but I would just say through the policy committee, there was discussion around if it went to a 30-minute unpaid, for instance, would that be enough time to actually be able to do anything? So then the question became, is it an hour unpaid? What would that look like? And what would those dynamics be? And again, there would be a lot of moving parts for that, something that we can explore. However, it's the will of council.
Right.
Would it be a ton of work to just see how it would work scheduling wise, just lightly work on it? Just,
To bring back for the next presentation when we get into this.
I don't know, I'm
What's the feedback from staff? I mean, is 30 minutes enough? Would there be a desire for days that you need an hour, come in 30 minutes early? Would that be a tough thing to implement? That's some days you bring your lunch, some days you may want to go grab something, and I have no problem with paying 30 minutes. I agree with James. It's tough though. You need to get away from the desk when you can, during that day. I
Yes,
don't know.
sir. The, I would say, and again, I can't speak for all staff, I'll speak generally, is that there was a lot of discussion about it. There really was. And, right now it's cultural. It is 30-minute paid lunch. That's what people are used to. That is what the general expectation has been. There we did have conversations about what would we do for 30 minutes if we're essentially having to leave or an hour, what have you, for that time. Right now, also just from a space perspective, there's not a ton of space for break rooms right now. So what we are exploring adding a break space outside on the back underneath the covered, the awning out back. But also, again, there's only so many places, just from a logistics perspective of where people would go for a 30-minute or an hour lunch, hour long break away from their desk. So I would say I'm happy to explore it. In fact, I'm going to continue to explore it just internally because I think it's important for us to know. I think that it would take a little bit of effort because we will need to make sure that we have dedicated space for where those lunches can be. Right now, the conference room is being shared. Obviously, Kevin's desk is in there. Not a lot of privacy, et cetera. So I'm happy to explore it. I'm happy to bring more information at the next meeting as well. Or I'm happy to say, if it's something for longer term, I'm happy to do that as well to try to see if there are options that come up. This is council's.
I do think 30-minute unpaid, I think it's illegal. I think it has to be 40. If I'm not mistaken. So you are sort of talking about a longer period of time. That would definitely be one of my negatives.
I'm kind of along the lines of don't mess with success if it's working, unless we can improve success. And if we can do something that improves it for our employees, I'd say if everyone's happy with the way it is now, don't mess with it. But
And I'd say this, we've always been the community that says, this is service our customers, but get outside, get away from it every chance you get, as long as you're not backlogging work. And I mean, that's just the nature of y'all's jobs. You got to be here to service the people as they come in the door, and you don't know when they're coming. You don't even have a dinger down at the road to warn you they're coming. They just show up. So, we need you here to make sure everything that the community needs gets done. But in saying that, we don't expect y'all just to sit right there at the door and look out waiting for them to come either. You got to get up and get away from the desk, get your legs stretched out, go outside,
Yes, sir. And I appreciate you saying that. And it may be, again, a potential recommendation, if you will, is we do have plans, like I said, to try to provide more spaces during this fiscal year for those break times. I'd say once that organizational cultural shift happens to where we have more flexibility and where people can eat, and get away from their desks. We continue to work to say, hey, please step away from the desk again. That's my goal, is that people take those breaks. Again, I don't want to speak for those that work at the front, but I do know that they work to stagger their eating as well currently to make sure that they can get away. I think that if there is once we provide that setup and that apparatus for them to be able to explore what those spaces, I think then it may be an opportunity for us to come back and say, hey, now that we've looked at this, we're in a good spot. We may want to explore again, extending hours, having an hour-long lunch. We could stagger and we, have the personnel to be able to handle it.
Yeah.
one thing about the 15-minute breaks, in my opinion, is that if you've got a desk, then you're a professional. I mean, not that all of our employees are professional in their way, but if you got to get up out of your desk, go to the bathroom, shouldn't have to wait for a 15-minute break. Is that kind of the way you look at that?
Oh yeah. So
15-minute break is more of a formal, right?
So,
No one's keeping time for a 15-minute break.
no, sir. I mean,
We
this,
don't have the energy to do that.
no, sir. Exactly. What this does, it mirrors again many other policies that essentially say that we want the employee to know what they can expect when they come to work in the town. And that expectation is we want you to get up and move. We don't want you to be sitting at your desk the entire time you're here. We want you to know that you have these breaks that are built in. It does not state what time you have to take these breaks. Again, it's conversation again with the supervisor, what have you. More than likely, it's a, yeah, take the break when you can take a break. But I wanted the employees to feel empowered to say, hey, I am at a stopping point. I'm able to step away a little bit. I'm going to take a walk and not have to be worried about
Right.
repercussions
Right.
potentially around that.
Are you tracking if they're working during lunch or not?
We are not. And essentially, as of right now, since it's 9 to 5, with the current time, working or not working would still show up on the timesheet.
Yeah, what did you say a while ago? Culture. Their culture is different. Like our culture is different. Like we typically take a lunch, but if we're setting trusses and we got a crane, we work straight through.
Mhm.
We don't stop. If we see rain coming, we know we're going to probably get off early. We work straight through. We don't even stop.
Mhm.
We don't, because we're going, you know, because everybody's got a little bit different culture about how it gets done. And you just get used to what you're doing. And if you don't like it, you typically find something different to do. I've had people come and work, and the first time we set trusses, they're hollering, when the heck are we going to eat lunch? Well, when we get all these up, Matt, $185 an hour crane rolls up and out of here. That's when we'll eat, because he's going to pay us straight through, because if he ain't here, he'd be somewhere else.
Mhm.
Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't show up the next day. But, you know, it's just the way it is in my world. You know, and I see where y'all work it out. You get your outside time if it's weather fit. You work it. I hear people holler down the hall, "Hey, I'm gonna step out for a minute, cover the phone." Everybody's just happy-go-lucky. They get sure they get to eat. And honestly, if there's an issue with a dog or something, I know they make sure that all gets handled. You know, now that the dogs have went home, I know they have issues with that occasionally. So I'm okay. You know, just don't take advantage of us. We love yous. But this set in stone helps future people coming on board to understand from day one what is available and how it'll work right out of the gate.
Yeah, and if, as there's more staff here, yeah, just keep the conversation open.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because as more staff comes, it could change.
Sure.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes,
I've got a question too. It doesn't pertain to lunches. It pertains to like council meetings. When they usually get off at 5. And do they stay here until 6:30 when the council meeting starts?
It depends. And sometimes people work through that time. So from 5 to 6:30, sometimes people
Right.
step to go home to handle, issues that may be outside of the office during that time. If they're at work from 5 to 6:30 currently, they are working, they are getting paid for that time.
And then when we meet till 10, that's 5 hours right there.
Mhm.
So are they comped out that time or?
It depends on whether or not they've hit their 40 hours. Again, first, I'm just going to use a salaried non-exempt employee. They, again, if they hit over their 40 hours. Now, one of the things that I've tried to do, and again, you can, they can tell me whether or not I've been successful at it, but I'm going to continue working on it, is the ability to say, especially after council meetings that may go long, especially longer council meetings, is to say, let's work on flexing that schedule. I want them to be able to get that time back. Now, again, if the job requires you to be here and you have to get that job done, especially from the salaried exempt side, right? Then that's going to have to happen. But I do everything in my power to say, you were here late, go home, take a longer time, etc. Because it's not, for me, it's not necessarily the time accrual that's concerning for me. It's burnout. And I want people to know that we're going to be flexible and we're going to try to support them for those times.
but there might be a benefit in starting the council meetings a little bit earlier so that there's not such a lag time between their forum.
Again, that is at council's discretion. I mean, yes, technically, if we started at 5:30, it would only be a 30-minute lag time. But again, it's up to, as an example, but it's up to council on whether or not you all set the meetings, you all set the times.
Yeah, you'd have to start that after I leave because I just barely got here tonight.
Well, I realize they have families and
Oh, I know.
would probably like to be home and get in bed at a decent time when they, have to get up and come in tomorrow too.
I
And they
do.
still want to see their family.
Yeah, this job would have to pay a lot more to leave my regular job to get here at 3 or something, or 4 even. That would just would. I'm just being honest.
That's just something to consider.
Yeah.
And it's something that if it doesn't come up beforehand, again, we do organizational meetings at minimum during new cycles of
Right.
councils, and that would be at minimum we'll have that conversation. But again, it's open to your conversations at any point.
Sure.
But people do have the option to leave early on Friday or an appointment or something, uses some time during the week for something that,
Again, it depends on who they report to, with their department head, whether or not it's supervised or whether or not there's coverage for that. But yes, the one thing I've been stressing and I will continue to stress is, especially on weeks that there are council meetings, we know that a time is going to be, after hours. As much flexibility that we can have with our employees, especially those that work during that time, we want to promote that. We want people to know that they have that ability and that flexibility.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Article 5, employee benefits. There are no major updates from the previous version. Again, this really talks, when we talk about benefits, talk about, group life, sick, group life, health benefits, et cetera, et cetera. It does shift workers' compensation leave, specifically the leave section, back to Article 4, because again, it's talking about leave, and then general workers' compensation, those processes are in Article 6. So we did try to find a better home for those two pieces, but the benefits themselves are still, for the most part, no major updates. Holidays and leaves of absence, Article 6. So in our research, and I want to thank staff for bringing this to my attention as well. There was in 2022, there was an executive order by the governor to add a floating holiday. So the Article 6 now defines within that there is a floating holiday. It defines how a person can take their floating holiday, what kind of notice they need to give before taking it. It's a use it or lose it type of holiday. Again, it doesn't roll over. But again, we want to ensure that, again, we're making sure we're in line with North Carolina law, but also it's a benefit. And I think it's something that we need to make sure we have in writing. Vacation and sick leave mirror current state accruals. We did not put language in there that said it will update with the state plan. Again, if council wishes to provide me with that direction, I'm happy to, but I wanted to make sure at minimum it's up to the current state plan, and then any changes will still have to come before council. That wouldn't automatically adjust. The current the state accrual is currently 14 days for vacation, 12 days for sick. So approximately 9.33 hours a month essentially gets you to 14 days in a year, and sick 8 hours a day, right? 12 months, you get 12 days of sick. The current plan is 10 and 10. And so for my review, that has not been updated in quite a while. So this is trying to get us back in line again with many of our peers and the expectations. We also added a years of service accrual table. So again, very easily understandable to say, hey, this is what you're going to be getting when you hit certain thresholds. These are the hours. Now, the one thing I didn't provide up here, but I wanted to let you know, one of the things that we're going to be looking at right now, you get lump sum. January 1st, nothing changes. You get 10 days of sick, 10 days of vacation. GASB rules now require us to report accrual rates, which Julie Osteen isn't here right now, so I'm going to speak for her, but I can only imagine it's not very fun to go from like lump sum to then calculating accrual rates and what the liabilities are. As a reminder, we also had to add those liabilities because the current plan essentially says if you earn 10 sick and vacation, let's just say let's just take vacation, 10 days. If you leave on June 30th, you get paid out half the time that's remaining. But if you leave on July 1st, July 4th, you get paid out for the full time. So that's a liability onto the town, right? We're paying for something that was earned in a lump sum, not over time. So what this does, it moves us in line with basically every peer that I have found, that says we're going to an accrual rate. So every month you work, you earn the time, and that time is then calculated into your bank. So at the end of the year, you will have earned 14 days of vacation, 12 days of sick. The other thing that we've updated is that the current plan says you get through let's say you have an anniversary, a 5-year anniversary. So you're going to jump into the next service cycle, right? If you started on January 2nd, right, in the job and you've hit the 5-year, you have to wait the full calendar year to come back to January 1 because you've already been allocated your lump sum as of January 1st. What this does, it says we are done with calendar year. We are going to go by work anniversary date. So there's no more lump sum on January 1. If you started on July 29th, as I did, and you work 5 years, you automatically move into that next cycle. You do not have to wait until that happens. And I think that that's a major benefit to this town and to the organization to be able to build that automatic jump into the system. We also updated vacation and sick leave usage, including elements for how you can use those times for childbirth, either yourself, if as an employee is having a child, or if there's a significant other, immediate family, etc., as an employee, how you can use sick and vacation time to be there for your significant other who may be going through childbirth. And so we've clearly identified that. The ambiguity, in my opinion, it's tamped down quite a bit now within that. And then it also outlines new voluntary shared leave policy. So we did not have one before. We have the recommendation is that we have one now. Again, if somebody has a prolonged time out, truly voluntary, is very clear. It also has ramifications for intimidation, harassment, etc. around it. We're very clear that it's truly voluntary, but how we as an organization, we care a lot about each other. The public sector, a lot of employees care about each other, how they can support, what the formal process is for requesting voluntary shared leave, and then how you can donate voluntary shared leave within the system. So again, another potential benefit outlined. So that's Article 6 again at the high level. Any questions that I've discussed or that you would like to ask?
Is the definition of how vacation dates are selected, is that covered anywhere? Like, say somebody wants to be off the week of July 4th, say Kevin wants off that day, but Michael's wanting off that week too.
Mhm.
Then we have no zoning enforcement or nobody to write a zoning permit or sign it. What do we do? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's nothing clearly defined within that, and it's truly up to the decision-making hierarchy. So again, I approve department heads and everyone who directly reports to me. So therefore, my job is to ensure that there's not going to be a hole in services. So again, if in this hypothetical, if we have planning and zoning that comes to me and then they say, hey, by the way, I would like to take this week off, and in Kevin's situation, again, I hate to use specific names, so I apologize. But it's like, if there's conflict, my question is going to be, how are you all as a department going to work through that conflict before we move on? Because we need to have continuity of services.
Yeah, okay.
So there are those checks and balances, especially through the supervisor relationship. There we go. Article 7. It adds emergency closing. So this is both about policies, pay policy when it comes to emergency declarations, but it also then covers emergency closings not relating from that declared emergency. So again, there are times that, hey, a snowstorm happens it's my determination that we have to close for the health and safety of town employees. It does not require a declared emergency for that to happen. So again, it just outlines what those procedures and policies are. We've also updated the dress code and business appearance policy. Again, there are small adjustments that we've made in that, but we believe they're much more in line with present day than it was and previously. The one of my favorite parts is that this draft also removes the official the pager information within the cell phone policy. I think that, and now again, I'm going to look at you. I think the pager time is done for our work. Still has a vital part in other places, probably not here. And then we also added a social media section. It's a very robust section that you probably saw in there. But really what we're talking about is how do we, what's the authorization process? Who can speak on behalf of the town and on our social media channels? What's allowable, what's not allowable, especially when it comes to our logos, etc. So it outlines clearly expectations when it comes for speaking on behalf of the town. All right. Article 8, essentially we've just the major thing of this, again, there are tons of smaller changes, but the major piece I think for council's consideration is the separation requirement. So we have language in there that basically clearly determines when you need to be turning your town property in, what the condition of that town property should be, areas in which if we deem that property to not be in the in working condition or the correct condition, remedies that we can go through in order to make sure we get that property back in the condition it needs to be. So as we try to beef that up, being good stewards of town devices, town property. Article 9 is talking about unsatisfactory job performance and detrimental personal conduct. I will tell you, these are the sections that are the least fun to talk about, but unfortunately, in many ways, are the most important to talk about. What happens? You hope everything goes well. What happens if things don't go well? And so really what you'll see in this section is we clearly defined unsatisfactory job performance, what that means, and provided examples that could fall within that. It's not an exhaustive list, but it does help, we think, the employee know when those issues come up and supervisors about how they handle potential unsatisfactory job performance. In a separate section, it talks about personal conduct and personal conduct that's detrimental to the town. It also provides examples there. And then last, but perhaps the most important of this, it defines the communication and the warning process and procedure that is required for staff to follow, against supervisors that have to follow proceeding any disciplinary action based off of the above. So we really wanted there to be clarity to say, if there's an unsatisfactory job performance, if there's discussion, how we're going to work through that through informal processes. And then what happens when we have to go to formalization? How are we going to document it, et cetera? So again, mirrored off of many other best practice communities, I feel very strongly that it's in a good spot, but it's something that I think is necessary for the updated personnel policy.
Your personal conduct policy, does it mirror anything that would have, I'm sure it's much more in depth and much more detailed than what we as council or board members have for our personal conduct.
Yes, sir.
So this is not part of it. I'd be in favor of us adopting those same standards to what we as council and board members are held to, just to keep continuity across the organization. It's not like we're asking volunteers or even people representing the town. We all represent the town. So our conduct should be no different than what we'd expect of employees.
I'll make a note of that and we can do some exploration on what that potentially would look like.
Okay.
If that's something that council would just would like for us to review and look at.
I believe they discussed that in the ethics class that you have to take when you first on board with being an elected official.
You're saying all, like, planning board.
Yeah, anybody who's involved, anybody who represents the town in any capacity officially, whether you're on a board or advisory boards or whatever.
Makes sense.
We should be held to the same standards that we're gonna hold our employees to.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, is that a request for that? You brought up also the ethics and the ethics policy that all council has to, go through as being elected to the town of Mills River. Is that what you're looking at as making that ethics policy more robust to mirror this, or a separate type of policy talking specifically about?
It would have to
detrimental
be
personal
a
conduct?
separate policy because we're talking about, hired personnel here.
Oh, no, yes, sir.
I think what he's talking about is in the future, we develop the same thing for the council, all board members, anybody that represents the town of Mills River's town and its functions.
Understood. Yeah, we're happy to explore that.
Yeah.
Right. I promise we're almost there. Another very uh tough topic to talk about, but again, in my mind, one of the most important ones is the grievance procedure and adverse action appeal. So again, there are times where grievances come forward. There's a grievance from employee to employee, similar teams, employee supervisor, employee department head manager, etc. So what the revamp policy, as you can see here, it provides those required steps all the way from truly defining what an informal process is and the expectations of an informal process all the way through final determination. Okay. One of the things that I think is vitally important that I'm happy to see in here as well is around this idea of third party. So third party mediators, it provides the option for a person to request that at any time during during these procedures, during the grievance procedure. Again, it would have to be technically approved, but they are able to request it if it's needed. If somebody else sees that it's necessary, they can act on bringing them in, such as like our HR consultants as a third party mediator. Again, outside of our organization, but specifically trained, and it says in the language, specifically trained for mediation. All right. Again, they don't have deciding factors on it, but they can help to make sure to work through whatever those grievances are to help guide discussion. And then it also, and I think this is vitally important as well, is it outlines the written response requirements from each step. So the one thing that's, at the end of the day, ultimately grievances may or may not be able to be worked out, right? Depending on what those situations are, right? Again, if it gets into detrimental job performance, et cetera, we have that whole other process. But when it comes to trying to work the grievances, the one thing that I really want to make sure that employees have and feel empowered to have is that we're going to have a written documentation of the steps that we went through when it gets to formalization, to where we can say, where were the disagreements, where were the agreements, where's their agreement, and where there's other outstanding things with the final decision or determination. And at minimum, having that expressly stated and shared, I think is vitally important, again, through the procedure. There's the ability to have some finality as a part of the grievance procedure. Now, and it also does outline, again, there's a specific section in there that also talks specifically about department heads, the department head decision-making around there, again, if it's an employee to a department head, and also there's discussion about from the department head to the town manager perspective as well. I, just like anyone else, would have to follow through those procedures, to written procedures, potentially bringing in grievances, et cetera. It's for all of the employees. But again, that's, it's a very important section, and I think it's incredibly robust and incredibly generous. And I hope that the employees hopefully never have to go and use it, but if they do, they can feel empowered to do so, knowing that there's going to be resolution at the end.
So feedback that you've gotten from employees, obviously in a small organization, it's very hard if I'm a report directly to the town manager.
Sure.
And I want to file a grievance against the town manager.
Mhm.
So do you feel that there's enough protection here for employees if they want to file a grievance against the town manager, that they can do so in a manner that's protecting the integrity of the situation?
Sure. And the one thing, and we did talk about this, and we've had many discussions. I've talked to, again, HR professionals as well to talk through this, because I also wanted to know myself what other locations have procedures, especially when it comes to the town manager. The one thing I want to clarify at the beginning, again, this is through the grievance policy. So this is usually through disagreement, not legal and like, legally breaking the law, right? And it's not about the detrimental job performance. Those are all very different, but it's disagreements between individuals or a group of individuals, et cetera. And again, to spell it out. So through that review, at least from our research, there in a council manager form of government, elected officials are out of that process. Again, from the grievance perspective, you all are out of that process. That's that separation between council and manager as the chief administrative officer. However, what this policy does and what I've clearly stated within this is to say that grievances against anyone, including the manager, are required to go through all of the written responses and formalization that's there. So again, it won't necessarily go, that the potential of it being just disappearing, for instance, or not being handled is not there. I am required, just as anyone else, to make sure there's the formal process. The person can appeal, right? Again, that appeal comes to me, but I have to read that appeal. I have to respond to that appeal. I have to put in writing, disagreements, what have you. It also provides me with the opportunity to say, hey, based off of the circumstances individually, or the other individual can say, we need to bring in a third-party mediator. We need to bring in these professionals to help because there is that manager employee line. So I've tried to provide as much flexibility and much protection isn't the correct word, but opportunity there for there to say, hey, we can work through, something through resolution. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, especially through the grievance policy, if there's just disagreement, and it happens in any case, it's up to the employee has to decide whether or not they want to continue working for that organization. Maybe it's culturally they disagree with it. Maybe it is decision making that they disagree with it, and there's no formal resolution. Again, hopefully that doesn't happen. This is set up to try to do everything humanly possible, even for grievances against the town manager, to try to work through that before it goes to any other action. So again, somebody at least be able to walk away saying, I've had multiple appeals. We've talked through this. We've probably, we've brought in other people. The disagreement is the disagreement, or the situation is what the situation is. And and ultimately that's the decision. So, and ultimately the deciding factor ends with the manager. And again, based off the hierarchy, that's where it's at. And again, not that I hope that nobody feels this way, but at the end of the day, a person has to feel whether or not they want to work in that organization. So, any other questions? Thank you for the question.
I just wanted to bring transparency to that.
Yeah, no, my goal was to build as much transparency into this process as humanly possible, within the bounds that are allowed. And again, they're not here right now, but I'll say I've had conversations with other professionals where I believe our policy goes far above and beyond that transparency from other organizations. And I think, again, I hope that employees feel empowered, that they can lean on it in case those situations come up, because inevitably, unfortunately, they do come up. Any other questions about 10? Last, certainly not least, no major changes in records and reports. So again, this is boilerplate, a lot of language regarding requirements for how we hold onto our records, we retain those records, our reporting procedures around those, etc. So this is I apologize, this is an older presentation, but the September 25th is getting a little busy. All right. I know that it's getting busy. Really, a potential passage when either you all feel comfortable and confident that it can come before you all for that. My recommendation is to not push it too far past September 25th for the next conversation. So if not the 25th, potentially October 2nd is a very open date for that. But again, it depends on how comfortable you are with the draft questions you have for the draft, I'm gonna have people with me to talk through the regular meeting. So it's up to you all for that. I will just tell you one thing that I am going to ask for you all to consider is that when you all move to approve the personnel policy, let's state that it's the will of council to approve, that there's the caveat that you delay implementing the vacation and sick leave accruals and comp time accruals to January 1st, 2026. So essentially, what that does, it allows our employees who are going to have new comp time accruals, again, the thresholds for comp time, it's comp time accruals, right? Like I mentioned, but then also vacation and sick, that it's there. It gives them time to plan. All right. It also gets us through the holidays. So a lot of times people take, time during the holidays. We can get through the holidays. We can start on January 1st, which is when we would normally be kicking off our annual accruals, the lump sums anyway. We'll start the accruals at that time. And then we'll also adjust the comp time accruals down to the 40, from 40 hours. The recommendation right now is to move the 40 hours down to the 12 hours, which is, you may have seen in the book, is when we would normally kick off at June 30th, right? And if I need to discuss that more, I'm happy to. But the reason why we would jump down to June to 12 hours when the max is 40 by the end of the year is because when they kick over July 1st, their employee salaries increase. So those comp time hours are now worth a lot more money, but we still want to have a day and a half that they can roll. Our recommendation is to do the same January 1st, that it rolls those 12 hours. And then and so that we can pay down that liability starting January 1st. People can still carry a day and a half over. And then that provides that flexibility for the next 6 months. So people aren't automatically hitting overtime immediately come January 1st, because they hit the 40 hours. But there's that. And then from the salaried exempt side, the 80-hour max. We've just set those 80-hour max thresholds there as well. That's my recommendation. I believe that provides a lot of time and flexibility for the staff to prepare for those major updates.
I've got another question, and your conversation just brought it up. Suppose a person doesn't take vacation time. Can they roll it over to the next year?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry. Yes. So, and thank you for that clarification. Yes. So if you have vacation time, that vacation travels with you up until that 240-hour threshold period. So again, at the end of the, after 240, vacation rolls into sick. But yeah, so there's no cutoff of that coming January 1. It would just change the accrual basis. So again, if you have 10 days of vacation now, I want there to be time to prepare that you would not be getting 10 days of vacation on January 1.
Right.
You would be getting the equivalent of hours of 14 vacation days.
And with sick days, I know a family member of mine worked in a government office, and she didn't use her sick days and saved them up and actually retired a year early.
Yes.
Is that something y'all do also?
Yes, ma'am. So we do participate in the North Carolina local government employees retirement system, also known as ELGERS. And as a part of that calculation, sick time can go towards your sick time can go towards your retirement date. Yeah, so you'll see that a lot of times that sick time is coveted for that as well. And I don't blame them for that. I tell you, it's it starts taking that time off.
Anything else?
That's my question. Thanks.
I do. Well, he brought it up and started it.
So you're looking for consensus on putting this on the September 25th agenda?
Yes, my request, thank you, Mayor, is if there's general consensus that, that this is the right direction, with no major updates or caveats that we need to do research on, I think it's in a good spot for potential consideration on September 25th.
Good, James?
I'm good with it. It won't be it's been presented, so it won't be as long of a presentation necessarily, right?
No, sir. Unless you would like it to be. Yes.
No,
Well,
I'm saying if the
A
25th
second
is
his.
busy- if we've got a busy agenda on the
No.
25th, and we have to go through this exact same presentation, then maybe we do need to move it back with, but if it's been presented, let's do it.
There may be some minor updates again, that there's one minor update that in fact I learned about just North Carolina state law that I'll call out when
Yeah.
we bring it up, just so you're aware of that change.
Mhm.
But other than that, I don't expect there to be any major changes for this type of presentation.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
So September 25th is what I'm hearing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all.
Any future agenda items? Want to mention laptops?
Yeah, one thing, it's not really an agenda item unless it needs to be. That's okay. The question is, my question is, I go to a lot of county commissioner meetings or city council meetings, and they have either a tablet or a laptop to go through, scroll through and see the minutes. And since we're now paying by the page, based on our copier lease, is that something that council would be interested in exploring versus the printed copies? We already get it electronically beforehand, so it would save Patty a lot of time. Or is it something we could do and make it optional? Because it doesn't work for everyone. For me, it would work fine. If I need to, I'll just go get a laptop and do it and save you the trouble of printing mine out.
Well, I know it's my understanding, I'm pretty sure Jeff Young, when he sat at the end of the table, he had one. I think it was furnished by the town, actually. So,
I'm not wanting to cost a whole bunch of money or anything, but it is costing money to
mhm.
print these out, because it's not just the paper we have to go buy. It's the fact that our copier hits us up for 5 point something cents per. If it's a color copy, then, and it's even more, so.
So, yes, if council wishes to explore that, we're happy to. In previous experience, I've worked in locations where, and I'm open to making sure that we can get town furnished laptops or iPads of some sort, something like that. If again, council is wishing to move that direction, I would say more than likely, my recommendation would be, I'm hedging a little bit, is that we would want to make sure that we would do something where all council would be assigned the same product. And then it would be up to you all whether or not you would like to use it for the official meetings here or other official type business. But then that way, again, we can at least ensure uniformity and standardization.
Or is that something that's interesting to y'all?
I would recommend. Unless you want to jump.
Right. My recommendation is a tablet based and not a PC or a laptop. Again, just because of the type of usage that we would be looking at, which would be reading, packets, and pulling information up, in real time, that kind of stuff. I don't think we need something more robust. And yes, that would the upkeep is a little easier.
I like my printed copy. I use my laptop at home for emails, and when we were doing Zoom meetings, through COVID and stuff. But I'll read through, make notes, highlight, move stickies, and I appreciate all Patty's hard work.
So look into it. Bring us back options, what it would look like. Do we have any budgeted money we would use that we've got no signed money to purchase anything of such? I don't think.
That's one of the questions that I would bring back as well. I believe that there are a couple of opportunities, and they're not high dollar items. So I think we have a few opportunities.
Okay.
But I'll bring it back as part of a package.
Okay. All right. If there's anything else, if not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Brian.
Second.
And Jeff second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We out of here.